Rose here, and today we're talking about belonging again, section 17. And we've been talking about this kind of question, can rationality, critical thinking, stuff like that lead us to belonging and rest? And it was suggested that in order for that to be the case, there would have to be a ultimate set of first principles, first axioms, of which all critical thinking, if done well, would eventually lead us to. Now, distinctions were made between critical thinking and rationality, but here those distinctions don't need to be maintained as strictly. But basically, can thinking lead us to belonging? Can it lead us to these ultimate axioms? And, you know, in order to even know if those ultimate axioms exist, like this single set of axioms that everyone would arrive at if they were only rational enough, well, we'd have to be God to know that for sure. But let's say that they do exist. Let's say they actually are out there. There's actually this problem where even if we arrived at those first principles, we couldn't necessarily know that we arrived there. This alludes to Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which the map is indestructible discusses extensively, which is the idea that even if you, basically to sum it up, even if you found the truth, you couldn't know you found the truth. You'd have to kind of know it was the truth ahead of time to recognize it as the truth. So even if there was an ultimate set of axioms, we couldn't necessarily know it once we arrived at it. Also, if it's not the case that every individual person does the journey of determining the ultimate truth, then it would have to be given to us by authorities. It would have to be given to us by experts. And very problematically, usually when experts give us ideas, it can feel authoritarian. It can feel like we're being oppressed into something. And it's probably highly unlikely that whatever constituted this ultimate truth could be known without the help of a lot of experts all working together. But of course, the problem there is then you'd have to rely on other people and you'd have to believe them. And so there's just another layer of uncertainty that would make it difficult to accept the truth as the truth, even if the truth actually did exist. And so, so you have two questions here. You have, is it possible does a set of ultimate axioms even exist? Which is a different question. But then, is it even possible to relate to the ultimate set of axioms as if they are the ultimate set of axioms? Because if not, then belonging based on the ultimate set of axioms would not be possible. There's also the possibility that the ultimate set of axioms is like that bunny-duck picture you see in Wittgenstein that's simultaneously a bunny and simultaneously a duck. If indeed the ultimate axioms had ambiguity where we simultaneously say X and Y or A, B to allude to Hegel and some of the other work in reconstructing A as A, well, then there's always going to be ambiguity and thus uncertainty. And so such axioms would struggle to provide for us first principles. And someone may counter and say, well, maybe could liberal science, the scientific method, get us to ultimate first principles? Well, the problem is, even if science could get you to extraordinarily reliable principles that were, in fact, the ultimate first principles, since there's no such thing as pure observation, we would have to determine what those principles mean. Science can tell you that you have a certain genetic code that's going to give you X abilities, that this neuron corresponds with this emotion, but it doesn't necessarily tell you if there should be a social hierarchy or not, or if equality should be your value. We as a society have to decide those things. You see, in a sense, we could say that science can tell us what the novel War and Peace is made out of, but it cannot interpret War and Peace for us. And that's going to have a problem because society necessarily is going to entail a certain exercising of human values. And that means that science, even if it plays a necessary role in the formation of a civilization that gets along, could not take you all the way to the place where it could tell you the right interpretation of those facts, which then, of course, means that science could not bracket out uncertainty and thus could not guarantee rest or belonging, as this book has belonging again has stressed. So it's the case that even if there was a ultimate set of principles that rationality could lead us to, it is not the case that we would necessarily recognize them when we arrived at those ultimate principles. And I stress again, if in fact ultimate reality is somehow an AB, an ambiguous bunny duck picture, as opposed to an AA or a bunny or a duck, a single image versus something more Schrodinger-esque, Which I think we have reason to think that the nature of reality is more AB than AA, based on the book Reconstructing ASA. Well, that alone would make it the case that a dream of unification on an ultimate set of axioms would not be the case, because you could never erase the problem of hermeneutics, interpretation, and uncertainty, which would get in the way of rest. So that's section 17 of Belonging Again. For more, please visit ogrose.com, and thank you for your time.